Welcome back. Find a comfortable position and let your body get heavy. Take a slow breath in and let it out. There's nothing you need to do right now. Know where you need to be. Tonight, I have 5 stories for you. Let them wash over you. You don't need to follow along closely. Just let the words carry you. Let's begin. The rain tapped gently against the window panes, a rhythmic patter that filled the quiet corners of my kitchen. It was one of those delightfully gray mornings, where the world outside was slightly blurred, and the air felt fresher than usual, as though each drop of rain was cleansing away all the little worries that seemed to accumulate like dust. The smell of cinnamon wafted through the room, mingling with the rich aroma of coffee brewing in the corner, a comforting blend that felt like a warm hug. I had set a small pot of apple cider warming on the stove, the spices inside bubbling softly, releasing their sweet scent while the kettle whistled its impatient tune, eager to join the rich canvas of aromas. I settled down at the oak table, its surface smooth beneath my fingers, and let the steam from my mug curl around my face. There was a delicate crack in one of the plates, a faint reminder of a clumsy moment from a dinner party long ago. Something about how hands can be both gentle and careless at the same time. I found it charming in a way. It spoke of history, of laughter shared over a meal, of too many late-night conversations that ended with sleepy goodbyes. In my quiet sanctuary, I thought back to a particular autumn afternoon, just a few months prior, when the trees were ablaze with warm amber and russet hues. It was a Sunday, and I'd decided to visit a small bookshop on the other side of town, the kind that seemed to exist outside of time, where you could easily lose yourself among the shelves, dust motes swirling lazily in the golden light, filtering through the windows. I pushed open the heavy wooden door, the bell above tinkling as I entered, and was instantly enveloped by the comforting scent of old pages and polished wood. As I wandered through the narrow aisles, running my fingers along the spines of books, I stumbled upon a familiar face. Miranda, an old friend from college, was perusing the mystery section, her brow furrowed with concentration. We used to bond over our love for stories, sharing the most ridiculous plots and characters late into the night, giggling by the flickering candlelight in our dorm room. I had wondered what had become of her since those days, and here she was, looking slightly frazzled yet still unmistakably Miranda. "Hey," I called out, and she turned, a smile breaking across her face, as brilliant as the first rays of sun breaking through the clouds after a storm. We exchanged pleasantries, settling into a comfortable rhythm of conversation that made the hours slip by, unnoticed. As we caught up, I could see her excitement grow when she spoke of her recent promotion at work, her eyes sparkling with determination. But then, just as quickly, a shadow crossed her face as she spoke of her colleague, Gary. "Oh, Gary," she said, rolling her eyes dramatically, a playful smirk tugging at the corners of her mouth. "You know, he thinks he can just waltz in and take credit for everything. Last week, he took my idea and presented it as his. Can you believe it? None. That was..." I chuckled softly, imagining Gary, brimming with confidence, casually stealing the accolades that rightfully belonged to Miranda. "What a character," I said. "But, you know, there's a part of me that thinks a bit of playful revenge is in order." Miranda leaned in closer, her curiosity piqued. "Oh, really? Like what?" "Nah, done." "Well," I began, a conspiratorial grin spreading across my face. "What if you did something harmless yet mildly embarrassing? Something that would get back at him without causing any real trouble?" "No, me." We laughed together, the idea swirling between us like leaves dancing in the wind. An idea began to take shape, a gentle prank that would remind Gary not to tread too carelessly on Miranda's hard work. Over the following weeks, we plotted and schemed, gathering supplies for what we eventually dubbed the Great Office Switcheroo. It was simple, really. We would swap Gary's stapler with a bright pink one that had glitter and sequins, leave a mysterious note on his desk, hinting at the glittery fate that befell anyone who took credit for someone else's work. Miranda was careful to leave everything as it was, and in our conversations, she seemed to find a fresh spring in her step that hadn't been there before. The day arrived, and it was a true rainy morning, almost as if the universe was in on our little scheme, wrapping the world in a soft blanket of gray. I could hardly contain my excitement as I watched Miranda orchestrate the prank from behind a potted plant in the break room, her eyes gleaming with mischief. She peeked out with the kind of glee that made my heart a little lighter. When Gary finally discovered the change, his entire reaction was script-worthy. He jumped up from his chair, the pink stapler glinting in the fluorescent office light, and exclaimed, "What on earth? Who did this?" The note, with its whimsical words, elicited a wave of laughter from the other colleagues in the office, a gentle reminder that lightheartedness often trumps seriousness. Even his irritation, while genuine, had a hint of humor about it. It felt as if the whole office was in on the joke, standing united in chuckles rather than division. Miranda and I shared knowing smiles, the moment wrapped in warmth and laughter. Later, as we sipped our tea at a cozy cafe, we recalled how everything unfolded. Her spirits were buoyed, and I could see the relief and joy radiating from her, a reminder that sometimes the simplest acts of connection and lightheartedness can bring joy into the busiest of lives. As I recounted this to myself, the room around me began to settle into a soft stillness. The rain continued its gentle serenade outside, a soothing backdrop to the warmth within my kitchen. I took a deep breath, letting the aroma of cider fill me with a sense of calm. I could hear the faint bubbling of the simmering spices, the chair creaking comfortably beneath me, and as I placed my cup down, I felt a sense of gratitude wash over me, for moments shared, for laughter exchanged, and for the sweet, petty, little ways we find to connect in this vast world. Nostalgia wrapped around me like an old blanket, settling into the corners of my heart. I closed my eyes, imagining the laughter, the warmth of a friend beside me, the energies of joy sparkling in the air. There was a beautiful peace in knowing that even the simplest moments can carry the heaviest of happiness. The gentle cadence of raindrops continued, each one a sweet reminder of life's little surprises, leading me towards that calm abundance of sleep with the final sip of cider. And now, our next story. I remember one crisp autumn evening, the kind that begins with a golden sunset stretching across the sky, brushing everything in soft orange hues as I settled into my little kitchen. The familiar scent of baking apples wafted through the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of cinnamon and a touch of nutmeg. I had just pulled a pie from the oven, its crust perfectly golden, and the filling bubbling softly. The warmth of the kitchen embraced me like an old friend, and outside the leaves rustled gently, catching the light and dancing down from the trees. I could hear the muffled sounds of laughter and light chatter floating in from the nearby park, where families gathered for a community potluck. It was one of those evenings when the whole neighborhood seemed to emerge from their homes, exchanging stories over platters of casseroles, salads, and desserts. I savored the thought, wondering if I should join them, but I felt a cozy pull to stay in the warmth of my kitchen a little while longer. The last rays of daylight slipped away, making way for the soft glow of street lamps outside, each one flickering on like a tiny star. Eventually, with the pie cooling on the windowsill, I slipped on my coat, wrapped a scarf around my neck, and made my way to the gathering. I could feel the coolness of the autumn air against my cheeks, and I welcomed the little shivers as I walked through the dimly lit streets. Each neighbor I passed greeted me with a smile, their faces alight with the shared joy of the moment. I felt thankful for this small community, where everyone knew each other, where kindness flowed like the river nearby, steady and reassuring. As I approached the park, the sounds grew clearer, more melodic. Children were running about, their laughter ringing out like music, while adults stood in clusters, sharing stories that floated lazily through the air like the golden leaves. The scene felt like something out of a storybook, the kind you read as a child when the world seemed so full of possibility. I spotted a few familiar faces, Frank from next door, his cheeks rosy with laughter, and Julia with her flowing hair, a bowl of her famous potato salad cradled in her arms. Ah, Sioilon. Just in time, Frank called out, waving me over with a handful of cookies. You know, you really have to try these. They're my secret recipe. Namanas. I smiled, accepting a cookie and relishing its warmth in my hand. The sweetness melted on my tongue, mingling with the laughter surrounding me. It was the kind of flavor that reminded me of childhood. Simple, joyful, and entirely wholesome. We chatted amiably, sharing small anecdotes about the local happenings and the quirky happenings of our neighbors, like how Mrs. Eldridge's cat had decided that the roof of the library was its new favorite perch. As the evening wore on, more neighbors gathered, drawn together by the crackling warmth of a fire pit that had been set up in the corner of the park. I felt the gentle warmth wrap around me, comforting and familiar. The children sat close by, roasting marshmallows and making the sweetest of messes. Their sticky fingers reached out for golden browns more, laughter spilling out with each gooey bite. I found myself lost in the rhythm of this evening, the way the fire crackled, casting playful shadows against the trees, the soft murmur of conversations weaving in and out like a gentle breeze. I drifted from group to group, sharing bites of my warm apple pie, each person smiling as they took a bite, their eyes lighting up with delight. "Where did you get your recipe?" someone asked, and I simply chuckled, shrugging my shoulders. "Just something my grandmother used to make," I replied, feeling a sweet nostalgia wash over me. As the sun fully disappeared and the stars began to twinkle above, I noticed that the laughter and joy of the evening seemed to wrap around us, a warm blanket enveloping the gathering. Conversations softened, and moments were shared that felt timeless, as if we were all knitting ourselves together with threads of companionship and warmth. I spotted Mr. Holloway sitting alone on a bench, his white beard glowing silver in the light of the fire. I wandered over, feeling a quiet sense of the importance of our small moments together. "Good evening, Mr. Holloway," I greeted, my voice soothing against the gentle crackle of the fire. He looked up with twinkling eyes, his smile warm and generous. "Ah, my dear friend. I was just admiring the stars. They remind me of the stories we used to share under the old oak tree." Then, the remembrance of those simpler times hung in the air, and I felt a shared understanding pass between us. We spoke quietly, weaving memories of the past into the present, memories anchored by the night sky. I shared my tales, and he shared his, each word wrapping around us like a soft whisper against the night. Time slipped through our fingers like the glowing embers from the fire, each moment leading to the next, the evening painting itself into a gentle tapestry of connection. The air shimmered with kindness, and I felt a blissful tranquility settle in my chest, knowing that we were all part of something bigger than ourselves, a community that came together over pie, laughter, and shared stories. As the fire began to fade, we huddled closer, the night deepening around us, a gentle chill reminding us of winter's approach. I watched as the embers danced into the air, tiny sparks of warmth rising toward the starry sky. Each little flicker represented a shared moment, a tiny connection, and as I turned to look at the faces of my neighbors, I felt a swell of gratitude fill my soul. Here we were, together under the vastness of the cosmos, warm and kind, each moment a reminder of the simple beauty in community. Slowly, the chatter faded, and the stars began to twinkle brighter above us, as if they were winking and nodding in approval of our evening together. Each person seemed to relax into the gentle embrace of the night, losing themselves in the comfort of companionship. And as we all sat, a soft lull falling over us, I felt the cozy warmth of my heart expand. I could almost hear the autumn leaves whispering among themselves, rustling softly as if they were sharing their own stories. The moment stretched on, a beautiful tapestry of calm connection and the beauty of simply being together. Eventually, the last fragments of conversation trailed off, fading into the cool night air, like dandelion seeds drifting on a gentle breeze. I found comfort in the rhythm of our shared breaths, the soft rustle of jackets as we began to stretch and prepare to leave. With each goodbye, I could feel the warmth of the evening linger, wrapping around me like a beloved quilt. As I walked back home, the sounds of our gathering still echoing softly in my mind, I felt a deep sense of peace wash over me. Each step felt lighter, filled with the warmth of belonging. When I finally reached my door, I turned back for a moment, gazing at the park illuminated softly under the stars, a precious memory etched in the night. Inside, I let the evening settle softly around me. The house enveloped me in a warm embrace, and I could still smell the remnants of my apple pie, the sweet scent lingering in the air. I paused for a moment, a small smile playing on my lips, and as I turned off the kitchen light, the cozy darkness washed over me like a gentle balm. The world felt still and safe, a quiet reminder that community is built not just in grand gestures, but in the little moments we share. With that thought cradling my heart, I slipped into bed, letting the peacefulness of the night wrap around me. The sounds of laughter, the warmth of shared stories, and the simple joy of connection drifted softly in my mind as my eyelids grew heavy, and I drifted into a serene slumber. Take a deep breath, and let's move on to the next one. The sun was just beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow across my little kitchen. I stood by the window, the gentle breeze wafting in and carrying with it the scent of freshly baked bread. I had spent the afternoon kneading the dough, my fingers sinking into the soft, elastic texture, feeling the coolness of the flour dusting the countertop. The kettle on the stove began to whistle softly, a sound that felt both familiar and soothing, like an old friend calling me for tea. I could hear the faint chirping of birds settling in for the evening, their songs mingling with the bubbling sound of water coming to a boil. I turned off the heat and poured myself a cup of chamomile, the steam curling up into the air like soft, twirling ribbons. I took a moment, standing there, savoring the warmth of the mug against my palms and the comforting aroma of the herbal tea. As I leaned against the counter, I thought about my neighbor, Alice. She was an enthusiastic gardener, her small backyard overflowing with flowers and vegetables. We often shared gardening tips over cups of tea, and I couldn't help but smile at the memory of her delight when she had discovered a particularly good recipe for zucchini bread last summer. I often wondered how someone so sweet could be so hilariously absent-minded. On that particular day, Alice had invited me over to see her latest project, a small herb garden just outside her back door. But she had sent me the invitation in a slightly jumbled text, and while I read it a few times, I wasn't entirely sure what she meant. The words danced in my head like mischievous sprites, playing tricks on me. "Come see my new babies," it said, and my mind made a leap. I envisioned a bunch of small, fluffy creatures, maybe an adopted litter of kittens or puppies, hopping around her garden. It was an amusing thought, so I decided to prepare a little gift for her visit, a sweet, crusty loaf of bread, perfect for sharing. I could already imagine her laughter as she tried to guess the secret ingredient. Maybe some herbs from her own garden, or perhaps a sprinkle of something unexpected, like cinnamon. It felt nice to have a plan. With a smile on my face and the scent of the bread still fresh in my mind, I carefully tucked the loaf into a cloth bag. The loaf was golden brown and slightly warm, and I could almost hear it whispering, "Take me, take me, take me." So, with my tea in one hand and the neatly wrapped bread in the other, I set off to Alice's house. As I made my way through the gentle twilight, I paused to admire the softly glowing lights in the windows of nearby homes, each one a flickering heartbeat against the encroaching evening. The air was cool, wrapping around me like a delicate shawl, and I felt a sense of contentment settle into my bones, the kind that comes from knowing you're headed to a place where you're welcome. When I reached Alice's door, I could hear her muffled voice from inside, bubbling over with excitement. I knocked gently and offered a small wave when she opened the door, her face lighting up in delight. Come in," she said, ushering me inside. The moment I stepped in, I was enveloped by the warm, earthy aroma of herbs and the sweetness of something simmering on the stove. "I brought you something," I said, holding the bag aloft like a trophy. A little surprise. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity. Is it zucchini bread?" "Nein, darling." I chuckled softly. "Not quite. Better, I hope. Bread with a hint of rosemary." "No." With a playful nudge, she ushered me to the kitchen table, where a small pot of something green bubbled invitingly. "I can't wait to try it. But I'm absolutely dying to show you my new babies." "You're now." I nodded enthusiastically, trying to suppress a laugh. "Yes, they're so cute. But how did you end up with baby animals in your garden?" "Oh, wow." "What?" she asked, her brow furrowing in confusion. "The nuesesime." "The kittens." "Nah. No." Her laughter bubbled over, a warm and resounding sound that filled the cozy kitchen. "Oh, no, dear. I was talking about my new herbs. I meant my basil and thyme. Now those are the cutest little babies I've ever tended." "Nine." "Wow." A soft blush rose to my cheeks. I chuckled sheepishly, realizing the humorous misunderstanding that had blossomed between us, fueled by my wild imagination. "I thought you were getting cats." "Cats? Oh, heavens," she exclaimed between giggles. "Can you imagine? But I can see how you'd think that. And I must admit, baby animals would have been a delightful surprise, too." Anyway, we shared a good laugh over the small mix-up. It was one of those moments that felt like a warm hug, reminding me how easy it was to misinterpret a text message, and how lovely it was to share a good story with a friend. As we took our seats, Alice ladled the simmering dish into 2 bowls, the fragrant steam rising up and enveloping our faces like a comforting cloud. The conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated with laughter and warmth. We enjoyed the meal together, savoring each bite, our camaraderie as comforting as the food itself. Nothing felt rushed. Instead, it was as if time had slowed down just for us. The soft light of the kitchen glowed around us, making the moment feel even more magical. Soon, our bowls empty and our laughter still lingering in the air, we moved to her cozy living room, a place filled with the soft glow of lamps and the scent of candle wax melting. I noticed a small potted plant sitting on the windowsill, tiny leaves unfurling, as if reaching for the last rays of the sun. "I think I need to give my basil a name," Alice said, tilting her head as she considered the plant. "What do you think? Basil the Great? No. Hiwani." I chuckled softly. "That sounds rather majestic for a herb, don't you think?" I let out a thoughtful sigh. "But I can see how a little seedling could have great aspirations." We found ourselves wrapped up in a gentle banter about her herbs and their imagined personalities. As we chatted, the soft glow of the evening light dimmed gradually, casting shadows that danced playfully on the walls. Time slipped by, peaceful and quiet, and I could feel the calm enveloping me like a soft blanket. The tea had settled comfortably in my belly, and I felt the waves of drowsiness begin to wash over me as we chatted about the small joys in life. I caught myself noticing the way Alice's laughter echoed softly in the room, her eyes crinkling with delight, and I found joy in just being there, in this gentle moment. And as our conversation quieted, a comfortable stillness settled between us, like the settling dust of the day. I could feel the world outside slowly fading, the soft sounds of neighbors shifting, laughter blending into the nocturnal symphony of crickets and rustling leaves. Before long, I realized I had begun to drift a little, the cozy atmosphere lulling me into a state of restful peace. I glanced out the window, where the last streaks of the sunset had surrendered to a deep twilight hue. "Maybe we should plant some more herbs tomorrow," I murmured, more to myself than to her. "Absolutely," Alice replied, her voice soft and reassuring. And as her words wrapped around me, I felt the gentle weight of the moment sink in, each one woven with warmth, laughter, and the comforting essence of friendship. As the stories lingered on the air, I found myself surrendering to the comfort of my surroundings, the soft shadows cradling us. I could feel my eyelids grow heavy, the rhythm of our evening settling into a gentle lull, where the world felt safe and serene. In that small room, surrounded by warmth and connection, I drifted gently off into a peaceful sleep, the echoes of laughter floating softly like feathers through the air, leaving behind a sweet memory of friendship and the effortless joy of friendship. Shared moments. Here's another story to drift off to. On a breezy afternoon in late September, I found myself nestled in a favorite corner of the cafe, where the scent of freshly ground coffee mingled with the enticing aroma of baked goods. The little shop, tucked between the bookstore and the florist, had been a cherished retreat of mine for years, its wooden tables worn smooth by countless conversations, laughter, and the occasional tear. The sun filtered through the large bay windows, casting a warm golden glow that danced across the ceramic mugs and soft, upholstered chairs. I could hear the gentle hum of the espresso machine, punctuated by the occasional clink of a spoon against a porcelain cup, a sound as comforting as the rhythmic tapping of rain on the roof. Outside, the leaves were just beginning to turn, their edges crisping up into vivid shades of orange and red, fluttering down to the ground like confetti on a soft breeze. I sipped my latte, watching as locals came and went, exchanging pleasantries and sharing bits of their day. There was something about that small town vibe. Everyone seemed to know everyone, and any conversation felt laced with history and warmth. As I settled into my favorite chair, a soft emerald green that conformed to my shape just right, I couldn't help but catch snippets of conversations around me. A couple at the next table reminisced about their recent camping trip, their voices low and intimate, as if the woods were still whispering their secrets in their ears. In the corner, an elderly man was reading aloud to a small child, his voice rich and vibrant, as they laughed over the pages of a colorful book. But my attention soon shifted to a conversation unfolding at the front of the cafe. A group of 3 women I recognized from the local community center were seated at a round table, the faintest hint of tension subtly weaving through their words. I listened intently, intrigued as they spoke about their friend Sally, who had recently taken on a new job at the bakery down the street. Sally was known for her warmth and kindness, always the first to offer help and the last to complain. Lately, she had been looking more stressed than usual, and the women speculated about her new boss, Dave. He had a reputation for being a bit difficult, often dismissive of the hard work his employees put in. I took a slow sip of my latte and leaned back, my mind drifting as I imagined Sally in that bustling space, surrounded by the sweet smell of pastries, but feeling heavy under the weight of someone else's harshness. I recalled that Sally had organized community events and fundraisers, always with a smile. The thought of her struggling made my heart ache, but I also admired how the women were determined to support her. One of them, a spirited woman named Marlene, spoke up, her voice steady yet compassionate. "We can't just sit by and let him treat her like that. She deserves better. We should do something." None. A shared look passed between them, and I saw the flicker of resolve in their eyes. It was a small-town moment, a promise of camaraderie wrapped in the gentle kindness that defined our community. As I wrapped my hands around my warm mug, I felt the weight of their decision settle comfortably into my heart like a well-worn blanket. I daydreamed about how they might rally support for Sally, how the townsfolk would come together as they always did. In a quiet way, I understood that sometimes it took a village, or at least a few determined friends, to raise someone up when the world felt heavy. The conversation drifted into light laughter as they reminisced about their own experiences at work, how they had once banded together to support one of their own. I couldn't help but smile as I recalled my own days of camaraderie at the old nursery where I had worked as a part-time gardener, planting seeds of friendship while digging into the earth. Marlene leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Let's bake something special for her this weekend." If we show up with something sweet and a plan, she won't have to face this alone. The others nodded enthusiastically, their resolve solidifying. As the sun began its gentle descent, casting long shadows across the floor, I could envision the women coordinating their efforts to bring joy to Sally's day. I smiled at the thought, feeling a warm, fuzzy feeling spreading through me as I drifted deeper into that cozy atmosphere, the laughter of the women swirling softly around me. In my mind's eye, I saw them gathering in Marlene's cozy kitchen, flour dusting their noses and laughter mixing with the sounds of whirring mixers. They would prepare Sally's favorite treats, chocolate chip cookies with just the right amount of gooiness and perhaps a lovely apple pie, baked until golden brown. I could imagine the sweetness of cinnamon wafting through the air, mingling with the sound of music playing softly in the background, as they chatted about their favorite memories with Sally, weaving the threads of their friendship tighter with each shared story. As that inviting scene materialized in my imagination, I began to feel a certain stillness settle over the cafe. The flickering candle on my table cast a soft glow, and the bustle of the cafe faded into a soothing hum, as if the world outside was gently tucking itself in for the night. Daydreams whirled about in my mind, drifting in harmony with the serene atmosphere. I imagined the three women carefully packing their treats into a pretty box, decorated with twine and a small note of encouragement, filled with hopes that Sally would feel embraced and valued. I could almost hear the soft whispers as they discussed how they would present the gifts, how they would smile, how they would support her in gentle, deliberate ways. As the evening wore on, the golden light outside began to fade into a soft twilight, the warm hues of the sunset painting the sky in dusky pinks and purples. I sank deeper into the plush embrace of my chair, letting the stories and plans of those women wrap around me like a cozy blanket. Soon, the cafe began to empty, the clinks of cups growing fewer, the laughter softening as people began to say their goodbyes. Despite the dwindling energy, the warmth of that day lingered in the air, a sweet reminder of compassion and community. I imagined the next day, when Sally would be greeted not only by the delight of warm pastries, but also with the reassurance that she was seen, heard, and cherished. Eventually, the women would find the perfect moment, perhaps when the sun was just rising, to surprise her with their carefully crafted plans. I could see Sally's face lighting up as she opened that beautiful box, the sweet scent of cookies and pie spilling out to dance in the air. That feeling of hope and warmth igniting like a tiny flame began to weave its way through my heart, calming all that was inside me. I felt my eyelids growing heavy, the rhythmic whispers of the conversations fading into a soothing lull. The world around me softened, caressed by the light and the laughter that had filled the cafe, now settling into a quiet conclusion. As I closed my eyes, a profound sense of peace enveloped me, like a gentle hush. I imagined Sally, her worries slowly fading away, knowing she was not alone. And as the quiet wrapped around me, I envisioned the warmth of her friends and the love that knitted them together. The simple yet profound beauty of kindness, blooming even in the smallest of towns, even in the smallest of moments, ready to cradle us all into a restful slumber. And with that thought, I surrendered to the night, letting the soft murmurs of the cafe fade into the background, and the gentle waves of sleep wash over me. Close your eyes and settle in for this one. The rain tapped softly against the window, a gentle symphony that created a soothing backdrop to the lively chatter in our little office. I sat at my desk, enriched by the aroma of robust coffee brewing in the corner, mingling with the faint scent of lemon from the homemade treats, sharing a plate on the break room table. It was late afternoon, the kind where the golden light filtered through the overcast skies, casting a warm glow over everything. The low hum of conversation wrapped around me like a comforting sweater, filled with laughter and the occasional teasing remark from my coworkers. Around me, the office felt alive in its cozy, everyday routine. The rhythmic sound of fingers tapping on keyboards blended with the soft rustle of papers, and the steady whir of the printer punctuated now and then by a light-hearted joke that sent ripples of laughter through the room. I glanced up from my computer screen and caught a glimpse of Jenna, her laughter brightening the atmosphere as she animatedly recounted an amusing mishap from her recent weekend getaway. Her auburn curls bounced softly with her words, a halo of warmth that made me smile, even from afar. I turned back to my work, but I was aware of the comforting presence of my colleagues, the steady, caring camaraderie that permeated our office walls. The light chatter was punctuated by the occasional clink of mugs meeting the table, a grounding reminder that we were all in this together, sharing not just tasks but moments. Somewhere in the background, the soft melody from the radio played an old tune that tugged at my heartstrings, evoking memories of simpler times. As the clock inched closer to 5, I could feel a sense of anticipation building for the small gathering we had planned for the end of the week. It was the first Friday of the month, a tradition we had carved out for ourselves, where we would gather for pastries, coffee, and shared stories. I felt a warmth wash over me at the thought of it. It had become a gentle ritual, a moment of connection that unspooled the stress of the week and wrapped us all in a blanket of camaraderie. But as I prepared for the end of the day, I noticed a slight shift in the atmosphere. Paul, our usually jovial team leader, sat at his desk, frowning at his computer screen. The lightness around him seemed to dim just a little, and I could almost hear the thoughts swirling in his mind. I had known Paul for years. His laughter often filled the office with warmth. Yet today he seemed distant, lost in contemplation. It left me with a soft worry nestled in my chest, a concern that felt unnecessary, but real nonetheless. I stood and stretched, savoring the brief ache in my muscles, and made my way to the break room, where the floral wallpaper enveloped me in a sense of familiarity. As I poured myself another cup of coffee, I could hear Jenna and Liam discussing the latest office gossip, their light-hearted banter flowing effortlessly. I smiled softly, feeling buoyed by their joy, but my mind returned to Paul, who still seemed quite absorbed in his thoughts. Once my cup was filled, I decided to take a small detour on my way back to my desk, passing by Paul's workspace. I approached him gently, aware of the delicate nature of the moment. "Hey, Paul," I began, my voice light and warm. "How was your day?" He looked up, surprise flickering across his face before he slipped into a half-smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Oh, you know." "Just the usual," he replied, though I could tell there was more swirling beneath the surface. "Is everything okay?" I asked, my concern seeping in. "You seem a bit out of sorts." "Nice away." He sighed, the kind of sigh that often reveals all the worries held up inside. "I've just been thinking about this presentation next week," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck absent-mindedly. "I want to make sure it goes smoothly, but I feel like I'm forgetting something important." I nodded, tuning in carefully as he spoke. "Sometimes it helps to talk it out. Why don't we grab a bit of cake later and run through it together? I'm sure you have everything covered, but a second pair of ears can help." "Done." Paul's smile brightened a fraction more, his shoulders relaxing ever so slightly. "You really think so?" I nodded earnestly. "Absolutely. You always come through with flying colors. Just a little reassurance can make all the difference." I gestured lightly toward the break room where the pastries awaited us. "Besides, I think you'd enjoy a slice or two, just to keep our spirits high, right?" A soft chuckle passed his lips, and he nodded, a sense of relief coloring his features. "You might have a point there. I guess I've just been overthinking it." "No." We shared a few more lighthearted moments amid the rhythm of the office, the laughter and conversation washing over us like a gentle tide. I felt a warm connection with him, realizing how comforting it was to support each other, even in the smallest of ways. The day began to wind down, and soon we would gather for our monthly treats, a cozy moment we had crafted through our shared experiences. As the clock struck 5, we all gathered in the break room, our little sanctuary adorned with colorful plates piled high with confections. Jenna had outdone herself this time, bringing in a decadent chocolate cake that seemed to glisten with a rich glaze, its aroma wafting enticingly through the air. Laughter erupted as we teased one another about our dessert choices, light-hearted debates breaking out about whether fruit tarts were superior to classic chocolate. I found myself sitting next to Paul, and I leaned in closer as we both picked at the cake with our forks, sharing bites in a friendly camaraderie. There was something so grounding in that shared moment, and the way he relaxed with each bite, realizing that maybe the worries he carried didn't have to weigh him down after all. Between bites, we spoke in soft tones, allowing the conversation to meander. "You know," I said, my thoughts drifting gently, "every time we have these gatherings, I feel a little lighter." "Me too," he replied, sincerity softening his voice. "Even if it's just for an hour or two, it feels like we're all taking a deep breath together." I nodded, savoring a piece of cake that melted in my mouth, as the light-hearted conversations around us continued to flow like the warm drink that surrounded us. It was a peaceful rhythm, a reminder that even amid the daily hustle and bustle, we could carve out these comforting moments to share and connect. As the evening wore on, we moved from cake to coffee, settling into an easy rhythm filled with words of encouragement and laughter. I could see Paul's worries beginning to melt away, replaced with a growing sense of ease. The bonds between us felt solid, woven through these small, nurturing moments. Eventually, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the room grew quieter, the laughter fading to soft, sleepy murmurs. I felt the warmth of friendship wrap around me, the day closing with a gentle sigh. With each passing minute, I could feel myself slowly unwinding, a soft weight lifting off my shoulders. Surrounded by the glowing faces of my coworkers, I took a deep breath, glad to be part of this tapestry of connection. It was in this moment I realized how beautiful the ordinary could be, how little gestures and shared laughter could create a comforting space where we could just be. As I took a last sip of my coffee, I smiled inwardly, grateful for the warmth that these evenings brought, knowing that each moment spent together was a thread that held us all a little closer. And as I finally turned off my computer and made my way to the door, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction, a gentle exhale that reminded me that everything would be all right. The echoes of laughter lingered in the air, a promise of more moments to come. I stepped into the cool evening, the soft sounds of the night embracing me as I walked home. The rain now a mere whisper above the rhythmic softness of my footsteps. The world outside felt calm and still, and as I reached my cozy little apartment, I closed the door behind me and took a moment to stand still. In the quietness, I could hear the sound of my breath, a gentle reminder to slow down and simply be. I sank into my favorite chair, a well-worn spot that cradled me with its familiar embrace. The gentle patter of rain on the windows became a lullaby, weaving through the warmth of my heart. And I felt a soft smile creep across my lips as I nestled deeper into the comforting stillness of my home. With a final glance at the soft glow of the lamp, casting a warm hue against the walls, I pulled the blankets snugly around me. I felt a profound sense of peace settle in, a quiet acknowledgement that life unfolded in beautiful small moments. And as I closed my eyes, surrendering to the gentle rhythm of the night, all I could feel was gratitude for the warmth of connection and the comforting embrace of a world that felt, above all else, just right. And that's the last story for tonight. You've traveled a long way to get here, through 5 quiet worlds, 5 small lives, 5 gentle resolutions. Your breathing is slower now. Your body is heavy and warm. There's nothing left to think about. Just the quiet. Just the dark. Just rest. Good night.